All right, welcome everybody to the fourth episode of the Lobby of Hobbies podcast. I'm your host today, Jazz, along with my co-host,
Judge. He's in the building. What's up, guys? How y'all feeling today?
And today we have two special guests with us. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Judge, why don't you bring in your special guest?
So I got my lovely wife that we have been speaking about for the last 3 episodes, Miss Dora Judge. She's been with me for the last 6 years and counting. She's put up with me, so, I got to thank God for it. Now we're in the board game, so y'all keep praying. For those who know, y'all keep praying.
And I brought my wife today with me, Delilah. Delilah, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Delilah and I have been together for 15 years, married for 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
Come on, somebody.
We talk about praying for you. I think you need to pray for me. No, honestly, it's been a blessing. But like I said, we've been talking about our wives in their support of our hobby, their tolerance of our hobby.
Right. Yeah.
Last episode, we talked about our challenge to ourselves for our wives, right?
Right.
So let's just get into it, Judge.
All right.
Why don't you say, we got some questions for them. Got some questions for you ladies. We gave these questions to you prior to, all right? And we just wanted you to be honest with us, honest with the people, because again, we have Dora. Dora's a new gamer.
Yeah.
Delilah's got some gaming experience, a casual gamer. But Judge, why don't you start firing away on some of them questions?
All right, honey. You ready?
Yes.
All right, let's get it. So, knowing that you're a new gamer, but what is your previous experience to gaming, be it video games or tabletop board games, childhood to present day?
So my previous experience with games would be obviously from my childhood. I remember playing Uno, Connect 4 with my brothers, my cousins. We were always playing Sega, Genesis, Nintendo 64. I was obsessed with racing games. I really loved Need for Speed. I would master all the levels, and I would really enjoy those types of games. I remember having I forgot the handheld PS.
Oh, the PSP.
Yeah, PSP.
Yes.
I still want one.
Yes.
I still want one.
I can't find it, but I had the PSP, I had the Game Boy, I had the Call of Duty game. I played it my freshman year in college. I remember just laying in my dorm room. I would play, I would master.
Her gaming experience is more than mine.
I actually beat Call of Duty. I remember I completed the entire game in freshman year. And I feel like that was probably the end of that era. I can't remember anything after that as far as video games is concerned. But then after that, it would be just the occasional party games, like when we would go to a friend's house, just the typical Taboo, charades, Pictionary, which are some of my favorite games. But I wouldn't dive into anything more than that. So that's pretty much my experience with games and gaming.
So she's got video game background. She even got a little bit of board game background.
I
didn't know this about her.
Game Boy.
You're married to her.
6 years, bro. And I knew it for 2 additional years.
And I had Pokemon cards. I had all that.
What?
Wow. Yes. And I would play Pokemon games on my Game Boy Color, my pink one. Yep.
All right. So who was your starting Pokemon? Pikachu, Squirtle.
It was definitely the basic, the foundational.
Squirtle, Bulbasaur, or
and Pikachu, right? Those are the 3.
Pikachu, yeah.
And Charizard.
Was it
Charmander?
Charmander.
Yes.
All right, Delilah.
Y'all knew more than I do now. So.
Same question. What is your previous experience with gaming, whether it be video games, board games, from childhood now to present day? What is your experience?
All right. So for me, I feel like I've always been really active in activities. I started off with sports. I would consider that my first gaming experience.
Okay.
Since the age of 5, my parents put me into soccer. So I played soccer. I played occasional softball. They even threw me into gymnastics and dance and whatnot. But I kind of just gravitated towards the competition sports, team sports. So I kind of stuck more or less with soccer and then track as I got into high school, college days. And as far as like game systems, so like Dora, I had that pink Game Boy Color, but my game was Tetris. I was a puzzle person.
Yes, Tetris is it.
Classic.
And I learned that from my grandma, who would sit there on the gray Game Boy.
Yeah, the big fat
big
one.
yeah.
Yeah, the brick.
So, that was like the beginning. And then I remember the day my dad came home with the Sega Genesis.
Nice.
My game for that was The Lion King.
Hey.
So I played, most of the time, I think I picked Simba as my main character. And then it kind of segued. So over time, like, we went through different game systems. My brother got the PlayStations. I played with him. We ended up getting Dreamcast at some point, and then he ended up kind of getting the Xbox, and I think that's where I fizzled out of the gaming world, video game world. His favorite game was Call of Duty, and I just could not control the guy.
He was looking up at the sky. I was like,
I think that's where I fell off of the video games. But some of my favorite games were your fighting games, your Street Fighters, your Mortal Kombat, Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, bringing it back, Sonic, the pinball. Even Crash Bandicoot. I gravitated towards that one at some point. And then, so aside from that, that was, the video game world. I also got into board games. My aunt growing up, she started collecting board games at her house because all of us cousins, we used to go to her house to swim in the pool. So after that, late nights, we would all start playing board games. And, some of the top board games that were at her house were like Trouble, Sorry, Monopoly ended up being one of the favorites for all of us. I loved Uno, different card games. But one of my favorite things about like board games is that back when I was younger, even though I didn't see my cousins maybe all the time, when we were together, it was cool how board games was able to like bring us together and get us to talk and just, laugh with one another. So, now that after meeting you, Jazz, after I went through like my college days, I was introduced to other like present day board games, like your Apples to Apples, your Gestures. And then from there, I think it segued into you buying some games, and then
it was crazy because
snowballed.
Like I said, I think I said in episode 1, I hadn't met her. I was like, I'm going to meet some of her family for the first time, like really like in the house at a family gathering. I was like, you know what? I have some experience with Categories, I have some experience with Taboo, so I'm going to pick these up. And I brought them to her house, and we had a blast. And she's like, oh, I think downstairs I have Gestures in the basement. So she brought up Gestures, and we had a blast. So we were playing like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning with everybody. And then after that, I think I was saying, I started looking on the internet. I came across Board Game Geek, and then it was over from there. I was like, what are the top board games, top 100? I started going down the list, watching all these YouTube videos. And then I was like, she's like, what do you want for Christmas? I started creating like a list of board games. And then when I put Pandemic on that list, like that was the one that for me, it was like a roulette game. I didn't know what I was going to expect because I looked at all the pieces and I was like, yeah, there's no way, this is well outside my range. But I just went with what the critics were saying, what everybody was saying about that game, that it's pretty fun. It brings a lot of people together. And I remember that one night I brought it over to her house, and we were like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I think I said, I don't remember if my father-in-law, like I said, we were just dating at the time. So I don't remember if my father-in-law came down, or I think we looked at the time and I was like, I think I got to get out of here before this man kills me. Like, he's going to come down here like, why is this guy in my house at like 2 o'clock in the morning?
Wow.
But yeah, see, it was just like, it was party games. Party games is what we were first introduced to, and that's kind of what segued into where we are today. I think just for me personally, the idea of those party games, even co-op games, like for me, I think that took the place of like my athletic days, that team sport idea, the cooperation ideas.
The competition.
Like, yeah, exactly. The competition that helped fulfill what was missing as an adult, where, you no longer play organized sports.
Or have the knees to play the sports anymore.
Or stamina.
Right.
But I think that's cool because you guys hit up on something that we were talking about last episode, which was new and casual gamers, they're very familiar with party games, right? Like categories, Pictionary, those things that you said bring people together. Like it's, even if you're not a gamer, you can go to someone's house and you're like, oh yeah, I've heard that game, I'll play, because when everybody's laughing, everybody's having fun. But what we were talking about was, how do we get those casual gamers into start trying games that we've been playing,
Right.
Because that's where we started. That was our thing with party games, casual games. But how do we start getting them to segue, or even just try, sit at a table, But I think that was, that's kind of what our focus is with the challenge that we gave you guys. And we're going to get into that a little bit later, but we still have some questions to go through. But I like where we're going with this so far. We were finding out some things that I think my wife had more gaming experience than I've had in my childhood. Like, I think it was like Sorry, Life, like Hungry Hippos, and like, and Monopoly, which I hated because I always lost.
Yeah, mine was just pure video game life. That's all I had.
And that's why I think I told you, I was like your typical jock kid type growing up, where all I did was play sports. And I thought, like, if I told kids that I played board games or stuff like that, I thought I was, I was the nerd. Don't tell me you play board games. God forbid you tell me to play like Magic the Gathering or something. Like, you're definitely a nerd. So, all right, what else we got? So we talked about like the first two questions about what type of games, Judge. What else you got there?
Being fairly new and more casual to tabletop gaming scene, what is it that you look forward to getting out of the whole gaming experience? So be utterly honest.
So I definitely want to have a good time. I want to take the opportunity to socialize. I feel like that's the biggest thing. It's unplugging from social media and from the rest of the world to just focus in an intimate setting with people that are close to you. And I want to end the game with laughter, tears in my eyes, just a good time. I'm the type of person that when I play something, I can get into it really fast. I can get very competitive, and it's like, it's great when we can interact and just have fun with it and laugh. And I gravitate more towards those funny, silly party games rather than those more serious technical games, because I feel like I want to have fun. I don't want to have to think too hard. To be honest, I don't. I just want to have a good relaxed time, and I want to like just laugh and, forget about all the problems that I'm facing and just have a good time.
Yeah, sounds about right, because that's what happened when we played.
Don't go into it yet. Don't go into it yet.
No, I wasn't. But
we gotta slowly build up to that.
Just so y'all know, y'all, I was hurt. I was hurt at the beginning.
Oh man! All right, babe. Say a question. So what do you get out of that experience?
I think along the same lines. I like a mix of competition. I like a mix of laughter, fun, most of all. But also, I think I like team building aspects. So you can be in a party game and be in your own separate team and really kind of work as a team, do that team building part of, like I said before, for sports, I think I get a lot of that fulfillment out of party games. But I also like cooperative games, know, and I think if it's just you and I, or if it's just, a small group of people where we see each other often, I'm okay with dialing it down and doing something a little bit more strategic, puzzle-like, and, also cooperative.
So you said cooperative. So the first cooperative game that we both played was Pandemic, right? And that sucked you into that strategic portion of gaming, right?
Yeah. So I think Pandemic is tricky because it's a cooperative game that it's detailed, so that I think that probably initially was a little tough for me, but the theme, I'm into science. I think that's maybe what drew me into being more accepting of it. And, as we kind of went on to the different pandemics, was it Pandemic Legacy? And then there was another one that you had introduced.
I think Rising Tide, and it's the other one's escaping me right now. But
it gave different elements of the game, same concept. But, I gravitated towards that probably because it was also the first co-op game that I was interested
So the question is, my question is, if you never had played Pandemic, for example, like, do you think you would have been more inviting, like, or more receptive of trying other board games? You pleading the fifth? That was a long pause.
She's constructing her
So
answer.
I don't know. I think in general, I try to be open, but I've mentioned to you, there are certain things that just turn me off about certain games.
Oh yeah, you're getting ahead of yourself. That's we have another. That question is for later.
But
But that's all the thing.
it's funny she brought up a good point, how she said she liked co-op games and she liked science, and so she played Pandemic,
Yeah.
which is something we talked about a few episodes ago, about when looking for games that you want to challenge other people to play, find out what they like and go with it.
Yeah.
And that's very it's a very big part of gaming, period.
Yeah, I think that, it's good. I think because, like you said, the theme is very important, because if the theme doesn't catch their attention, they're definitely not they're going to be more reluctant to kind of start diving into the game, right?
Right.
Because if they don't like the theme, it's like, oh, I'm turned off this theme. It doesn't really capture me. But if you have something that the theme's there, right, you can kind of mask the strategy behind the theme, because now it's like they can get into that specific portion of it. But then that also, like, as they're playing, they're like, oh, I see the strategy. I'm starting to like the strategy or whatever. And then I think that, me personally, I think that gives them the opportunity to, now I'm going to try a game just so I can get some strategy. The theme can kind of come secondary, because there are some games that theme is just like pasted on there. Like, you can make the theme whatever you want it to be,
right? But
you enjoy it because of the strategy portion of it,
right?
At least for us,
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, it was a theme that drew me into Pandemic, and then I was like, oh, okay, I get the strategy behind this, and I think that may have been what made me more open to gaming.
Yeah, for me, it was actually Dice Masters. Superhero fan, superhero geek. And, I like rolling dice, but I'll never gamble a day in my life. So I was like, well, Dice Masters was the way to go. Yeah. And ever since then, I've been in gaming with you. So, it kind of same thing.
So my next question is, how do modern board games, like the games that, are more recent stuff, you're not going to find at your, Walmart or Target, you're going to go to a game store to find, Dora, the ones that you look at my shelf and you're like, I've never heard of that game, but those modern day board games, how do you think they compare to some of the ones that you've played as a kid? I know it's, it's different in the aspect of, the weight of the game. It's a little bit heavier, but as you've transitioned, how do those type of games start, how do they compare? Where do you look at them?
I mean, I honestly sometimes feel intimidated by those types of games. I feel like they're more complex. I feel like the themes are more, to be honest, I feel like they're more dark, more mature. There's these creatures or these really, I don't know, just, it's not like very friendly or kid friendly, so to speak. It's like very mature. So it's not something I would walk into a game store and look at and take off the shelves and walk with it to the checkout. I get intimidated by those types of games. And I feel like they're just more complex. There's just more to those types of games. And I think that's why I kind of prefer the more simple and classic party games, because, it's just what I'm so used to. And I don't know.
And plus you already know how to play them. And I think one of the things that we talked about before is you're a doer. You rather do, I'm not saying that you don't think, but you're a dude. That's what you do. You like to do. You just go and do. So with that, those type of games and what I've learned is playing games is just show me how to do it and I'll do it. Don't even go, we don't really got to go through the rules and you'll pick it up anyway,
right.
Trying to explain the rules, it becomes redundant. And same thing, when I try to listen to jazz, I'm like, my head goes this way and I get lost, ooh, a bird. But and certain games will pull me to the instructions, right? Because I love the full concept of the game. And then other games are it looks cool. I like the way the box looks. I like the way the pieces look. This looks like it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Let's just figure it out on the go, So, so I do understand that, and it's just one of those things where the type of person makes the type of game, You just got to find that game that fits your inner child, we'll say.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Same question, babe.
Can you say that question again?
So modern board modern day board games, how do you compare them to like the games that you played up growing up as a kid? Like,
Okay. So you're saying like the games that you and I
are
have
starting
played
to
recently.
yes.
First. Okay, so my childhood games were pretty simple. I mean, you open the box. Sometimes you don't even have to read the directions.
Right there on the back of the
Connect
box.
4. I mean, I mean, you
Connect
can
4.
you can tell by the front box picture what you have to do. Things like Uno. I mean, you make your own house rules, but for the most part, it's simple rules. So probably childhood to now, it's the rules. The directions that you play back then, you know, I think it was geared towards younger kids.
Yeah.
Whereas the games we played now, it's definitely geared to a more mature age that you actually have the patience to sit down and read.
Sometimes.
I'm not saying
In your
that.
defense.
I'm not saying that I do that.
Right. No,
I'll be honest. If I see like a game has a booklet this thick and it's like this big, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Right, yeah.
What are the rules for this game?
It looks like a moving box.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm with you on that one.
And I mean, I understand certain games are so complex that you need directions for different components. But I guess, yeah, for me, that's a big intimidating factor, like Dora said. So.
And go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say I appreciate like the designers and creators of these games because it takes a lot of work. I mean,
for sure.
As a creative, like you know the behind the scenes. So I appreciate the art of games and board games as a whole, but it's just not something I ever gravitated towards. So it's definitely something I'm open to. Obviously, like it takes a while for me to want to sit and play the game, but to be honest, once I'm in the game, I like it. You know, there's no denying that. So I do appreciate it, but it's definitely different. It's a lot more intimidating, and it's different than what I was raised up, playing.
Yeah.
Dora, do you think that, because I don't know about you, but for me, like when we're like, okay, let's sit down, let's play a game, I'm eager to play. I want to play. I want to get down to the nitty gritty. Let's just do something.
Yeah.
If I have to sit there for a half an hour and listen to directions, it's hard.
Yeah.
Although while you said I appreciate, because it's like, wow, this game's that complex. Somebody had the mastermind behind this to think of, okay, if this doesn't work, then this is the next step.
Right.
It can get really intricate. And, I appreciate that about some of the games, especially the games that I'm like, wow, I took the time to listen to those directions and I can really appreciate it and even go back and play it another time.
And then it doesn't become as complex. Once you understand everything and the different components, you're like, oh, this is nothing. And then, you end up liking it and you want to invite someone else to play it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and I think that's something that I tell Jazz, like, babe, I want to play this game again so that I can get the hang of it more and more. And I know sometimes he's like, I have 50 other games on this shelf I want to get out into playing. But I'm like,
she's like 100 off.
I like that game.
Yeah.
So I really want to get it down pat
Right.
for, to be able to play it and not be like, well, what was that game that had the castles and,
Yeah.
And
that's just me.
It's interesting that both of you guys bring it up because I feel like for me, that was my first challenge. My first challenge was, well, aren't all those games dark and like extra evil, you know?
Yeah.
And trying to be a Christian in the midst of all these like kind of demons am I letting in my house? But what I learned is like, and Jazz put me onto this, was like there's games, about birds, wingspan. There's games on planting, making a forest, photosynthesis.
Yeah.
So there are little games that you can play that aren't as demonic or as evil and that don't have a lot of rules either. But my typical thing going into it is I was like, hey, so you want to try some games? And I felt the same way. It's like, oh, this game was dope. Let's play. Oh, you want to play that new one that's even bigger than that one that looks like you have an hour to set it up and then we got to build it and paint the miniatures. All right, cool. Let's try that then.
I think it's very good hearing both of you say that because I know that for me, I'm the type of person who's always eager to try something new, right?
Right.
And I think my personal downfall, I'll admit it now, is that I feel like all the games on my shelf, I've got to get through at least playing them once, like in a year, right? Which never happens, because there's games, she'll tell you, that have sat on my
Still
shelf in shrink wrapped for more than a year.
Right.
And they're games that I've demoed at a convention, I've played at a board game shop, someone's introduced me. So I have played them, and I am starting now to be more, more decisive on what I add into my collection. She'll tell you, because I was the person like, oh, I like this, I'm gonna bring it on my shelf, I'm gonna bring it on my shelf, bring it on my shelf. And then I got to a point, I was like, you know what, I'm honestly never going to play all these games. And I start weeding some games out. Not that they're not good, but sometimes I find something that has replaced it. And I think that's what I'm doing now more so, is trying to find a game that, okay, yes, it has the same type of theme, or maybe the same mechanics. And we talk about the mechanics of games, right? Whether it's a worker placement, or whether it's an engine building or a deck builder. But okay, I have this deck builder. Let me limit it to these types. And if I find one that, yes, it's a great deck builder, I've played it or I'm looking into it, maybe I'll pick it up, play it, and then if it's too similar to what I have, I'll kind of measure them out, and then I get rid of one of them. I think, with being able to, sell and trade stuff on a secondary market, I think that opens ways to being able to try something new. And I think I'll be honest, that's somewhere I got to kind of get better, because she told me, I said, I think the next question I think you have over there is something about turn-offs, but that's what she was talking about. That's one thing that personally turned her off was, sometimes I'm ready to try the next game, but she still wants to dive deeper into this game and play it again, and really, get the juice out of it.
Right. Because it reminds me, like you said, you guys give respect to the creators and the content creators. It reminds me when we went to PAX, and some of the guys who, those new games that aren't even out yet that we got to look and sample, they months into playing these games, they play every single scenario. They play them all.
Yeah.
And they're begging people to help them or look to help them play the scenario or figure the scenario out, So, and when we went, we got there in the morning, and I don't think we left until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Just playing games.
Yeah. And literally we were just helping people sample games out, and these are people that do podcasts as well. And, and they're they already do what we're trying to do now, so it was cool to be immersed in that environment, because now I see, exactly what Jazz was looking into. And then, once we went, I was like, man, this is really cool. There's a collective of people, and I said this before in the beginning, in our first episode, for me, it's all about unity, togetherness, I think that's where we fail a lot as human beings, period. And I know the two biggest things that I've seen bring people together: music and games. Now, games could be anything: sporting events, board games, video game tournaments, all that. So those are the two biggest things I've always seen that you will always find around the world, everywhere, right? So for me, that's why when I went, I was like, man, nobody looked at each other weird. There was like, hey man, do you want to try this game? I'm like, who are you? Oh, I'm from Illinois. It don't even just come on try. I'm like, I don't know you, bro. But inviting.
We talk about what's going on in the world today, right?
Right.
We're seeing a lot of racial divide. We're seeing a lot of, people, you look different, so I just don't want to be around you. You're not like me, right? We're seeing that now. But I know in my personal experience, and we were talking about it, we're looking around and we're darker than a lot of people at these conventions.
Right.
But honestly, we had the experience that we were able to walk around and we were getting people that were saying, hey, you want to play this game? We're looking for people to play with us. So, we've been lucky to have that. Now, is that everywhere? Is there people that are listening that look like us, that have experienced things not being as inviting? Yeah, I do think there is. And I think it happens, being newer content creators. I think we're seeing that there is a platform, just for content creators in general. And there's not a lot of them that look like us.
Right.
Thankful for people like, Jamey Stegmaier at Stonemaier Games, who, he put out, an invite to say, hey, I'm looking for people of color who are interested in content creating, or who already content create, reach out to me. And that was one of the first things we did. We reached out to him, and he gave us a platform and gave us a lot of advice and a lot of support.
Right.
And said, hey, this is what I think you should be doing, go this way, try this out. And, I'm thankful for people like that, and people like, the guys over at Board Game Spotlight, or guys and ladies, Derek and Lizzie Funkhauser,
Mm-hmm.
James Hudson over there, Skybound Games, the guys over at Gaming with Sidekicks, who, and even Bob and we were playing with Bob from One
Right.
Word Family,
Yeah.
till 2:00 in the morning. But these guys were people that I said, hey, you guys have a vision, whatever it is. Listen, we'll be there and offer support to you. But hey, just do it. That's how we started. We just got into it. We loved what we do. We just jumped into it and just share what we did. And that was our vision, right? But I think, that's what it comes down to. Like I said, is there are things that, that sometimes can look like it's a turnoff, or, whether it's this game or whatever, but the more you start meeting people, or, you find out that, they are inviting. There are people that are going to be inviting, and it's not going to be all the time,
Right.
but they are there, and you're never really going to know unless you kind of step out the same way we've kind of stepped out here, right? With this podcast, we were kind of hesitant to it,
Right.
and we just stepped out. We had people who we found were inviting and said, just give it a go. And hey, we're here.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how long though, right?
Right. And oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think that's really great that they're looking to diversify and really expand gaming, and extend it to people of color, and, bring more diversity to board gaming. I don't know how, I haven't been to a board game convention, but, even women, I don't know how many women you have at some of the conventions.
Well, the number is, it's definitely
sure it's
male
probably-
dominated. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's male dominated, but there's women out there. But I think from my experience that I've seen, like, on Facebook and things like that, there are a lot of males out there that are, board game designers. There are women designers, Wingspan, woman designer, great game, but there's husband and wives that are becoming designers now. Pentry Games is a husband and wife combo. Mike and his wife, they designed a new game coming out shortly. It's called On the Rocks. That's going to be a good little Mancala mechanic about making, different types of drinks, almost like you're bartending and you're making your different types of drinks. So
nice.
I can't wait to get that one to the table. That one's going to be coming in. But yeah, I think there's more women coming up the same way.
Yeah, I think that's just great. It just adds to the idea of gaming, and it only expand and reach more people. You
Exactly.
guys mentioned it brings people together, and I just really like the fact that it's kind of becoming more diversified.
And I think, Judge, you were talking about, some games, and Dora were talking about games that are like, sometimes you look at them, they're like a little darker, right? And there's people who are into gaming that you said are not into the darker type of games. Maybe it's for their own personal beliefs or whatever the case may be. And there's a picture, I think I've posted on my own personal Instagram page, where it says, it's a bunch of different people there. You have, I think, a white person, someone who's Middle Eastern, someone who's Black, someone who looks Spanish, and, men, women. And it says one's like a Buddhist, one's an atheist, one's a Christian. And it says, that at the table is where you can just bring all people to the table to just enjoy, a game, which I think is awesome, because, when it comes down to it, yeah, I've sat as a Christian, sitting at a table, and everybody just puts their differences aside. I'm not there trying to preach to someone, and someone's not trying to preach to me or turn me down because of my belief. And I think that's what's pretty cool about the hobby, is that people come together around one thing, which is games. They take their differences to the side, and they can sit at a table, whether you look different or not, have different beliefs, and still enjoy themselves at the end.
Right.
And then at the end, if you want to, you have an open door to say, hey, you know what? Hey, my name is so-and-so. Yes, I'm Christian or whatever. I have these beliefs. I'm not into those type of games just because that doesn't jive with me, whatever the case may be. But you get people who they're receptive of it. They respect that, and there's other games, like you said, that other people, hey, I'm not going to try that, or, I am going to try that. But I think that's pretty cool just about the hobby in general, that there is that diversity, but that diversity is only going to be there if you're inviting of it as well.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely think there's like a cultural component to it also, because like I know for me growing up in my family, like my immediate family, like around the holidays or birthdays, if my family was to buy a video game or board game, it would be something they would see like in the commercial stores, like those mainstream games, the popular games. My mom would never go into a game store to buy like a board game. Like she would go to like a Walmart or a Kmart and go to the toy section and get those standard, commercial games. And I feel like that's probably why I was never exposed to any of these more modern type games, because it's kind of like we didn't even know that was like a specialty, so to speak. It's kind of like just those commercial type games you see at the store, the Sorry, they all go on sale for Christmas, Black Friday. So it's like those common games that you see year after year. So it's kind of like you're just so used to that, those games, that you wouldn't even think to go into a specific store for a more diverse collection or options. So.
I think she hit it perfect. I'm thinking of because culture is another thing. I think we were talking about it before, like growing up in a Hispanic household, and you said it's growing up in a Black household. There were certain games that yes, you played. You had your cultural games, like a lot of Hispanics, they play dominoes, right? They did play different card games, and growing up, I always wonder, was the board game industry early, did it really target minorities? We always wonder, did it really target minorities, or is that something that, maybe was, to say it bluntly, was that something that they targeted towards more people that were white, in America, not color? We understand like a lot of games that are designed, out in Europe and Germany and things like that, where it's a huge culture over there. But here in America, like were these games not targeted to our culture or, people of color? But now we're seeing that, we're seeing more gamers who are of color that you're seeing at these conventions, but even board game designers that are of color, that are women, so you're seeing this more and more. Now, does it need to grow? Of course it needs to grow,
right?
But I think that only happens if people like us who are in the hobby are able to share it with people who look like us as well, to introduce them to things that they don't normally see. And you said, like, do they rarely go into a board game shop? No, they're going into Walmart and Target. And yes, there are, Targets, and she'll tell you, when we go into Target, the first spot I go to, regardless of what we're going to, is for board games. But they have a huge strategy board game section.
Right.
And I stand there, honestly, and I look around and I see people that they'll look at the games, and no matter what they look like, they're still passing it and they're going to the typical games. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, you really should look at that game. You're spending $30 on this. You should at least I'll spend $35. I'll give you the extra $5 or $10. No, buy this one. It's a lot better. But it, like I said, it comes to a cultural thing. People gravitate to what they know, what they're comfortable with, Right. But I think that leads to like turnoffs. Like, what do you think regarding those turnoffs? We had a question about turnoffs over there.
Yeah. So, what is a turnoff for you when it comes to board games? Is it like the amount of pieces, the artwork, the theme, or anything else you can think of that can kind of turn you off from a game?
I would say all the above.
Everything. If it doesn't say Dora approved on it.
Like, I'm a visual person. Like, even when it comes to like a movie, like if we're gonna get ready to go see a movie, like how does the trailer make me feel? Like, how does the visuals make me feel? Does the storyline make sense? So like, if I'm looking at a box, like, do the graphics, like, are they attractive to me? Do they look old school? Like, is it like, where is the story base? Like, all of that to me matters. And it's like a hit or miss. Like, you have to attract me at that moment, because if not, I'm not going to turn your box over to read the description. Exactly. If I like your artwork, I'll turn the box over and look at the description. If the description is confusing, I'm going to put it right back down and just walk away. If I don't understand the back of the box, then I'm just going to be like, this is too much. I'm overwhelmed.
Designers, publishers, listen to Dora.
Listen closely.
The artwork on the front of the box is important, because she's not even going to look at the back of the box.
And it's funny because I said that too. I say
it because of experience, like, and that's all. And I know I should not judge a book by its cover, and I know that. But that's just my initial honest like reaction and response to that. But yeah, those are like my things, because I'm a very visual person, and if the board game itself looks very complex, I'm like, whoa, like, what am I getting myself into? I wouldn't say it's a turn off completely, but it would take me some time to really get
to adjust.
To adjust. But those would be like my main things, like I would walk by that board game if it doesn't like attract me, you know.
Let alone we don't even barely go to the toy section anyway because
Yeah.
Well,
we
you
got
do.
2 girls.
Okay, you got the 2 girls.
I go by myself. When I do, I FaceTime you. Jazz, look what they got.
Too funny. Kind of along the same lines. For me, it's the colors.
Okay.
I like vivid colors. I
Mhm.
like things that pop, that stand out. So if I see a box that kind of looks a little faded in color, for me, it's not so much. I don't know. I've never read a box. I've never read a board game box. I kind of I do rely on you to purchase the board games and ask you questions
And
afterwards.
reviews are important too.
Yeah.
Like, I look at reviews for everything. So if I like see the reviews and they're not good, it's like, I don't want to play this game. Like, I'm not, excited to want to play it.
I mean, and even in our defense, like, I got into it right before we had Aria. So, dad mode didn't kick in. My music was slow. It was like a slow process. I wasn't even LLC yet. So it wasn't, I had the time. And plus we were doing what we were doing at LOJ, we're young adult ministry. So we were always together, so timing is everything too. You were getting into it now, just got a house. You know what I mean? We got 2 girls, so it's like mom kicks in. I'm like, who has time to play games? You know what I mean? It's like, so it's like, well, what are we going to do during the quarantine? We're going to watch a movie. That's what we're going to do, and because that's the only thing where you really can turn your brain off, because we're doing so much. We're running around. Well, not even run around in the house to get, to take the time, take advantage of the time, but we got to work from home, So even now, like, it coming into it, given the background, like we're married, they're married and they have a daughter too. We have 2. So that plays a dynamic into the gaming, the gaming as well. Cause we've met married couples where it's like, Hey, I got like 2 hours. We need to pick a game that's quick because the wife's going to call me, and I need to be home by such and such time. And some people hide from their wives to do it. And others are very honest, but it really comes with the territory. Like, we're not just talking like, well, we just don't like games, or we just, we're just trying to, look, if it's cute, you in. If it ain't, you out. It's a little bit more going on in the background.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think to touch on that too, it's like you mentioned length of the game. And I touched on it too, where length of directions can be a turn off.
Mm-hmm.
And then the amount of pieces, like if it takes you more than 10 minutes to set up the game.
She wanted to say seconds.
Yeah. Listen.
10 minutes is kind of long actually too. But if it takes you a decent amount of time and it's just like, you got to put this piece here and here, I tell him a lot, please set up the game if it's that long, and then I'll come down and I'll play with you.
Oh my gosh, don't have me sitting there.
And those are the moments where I'm down there setting up the game and like, please God, I hope she didn't fall asleep. Please God, I hope she didn't fall asleep. So I'm trying to set it up real fast, right? But I think, that's important. Not only that, but like things like time limit, right? You want to, all right, some people want to play a game within an hour and a half, some people 2 hours. And for me, like an hour and a half to 2 hours was my sweet spot. Like if you went over that, to me, I think some games started to drag out. But it wasn't until at PAX, we decided, let's try. I know it was one of my goals to play a game that was longer than 2 hours. Yeah. And we did. It was almost like three and a half hours. But what's crazy is that as we played it, right? As we played it,
was that
Flotilla? Like you said, you're just playing a game.
Flotilla took us about 3 hours. Yeah.
Like, is there money involved? That's the only reason I sit for 3 hours to play a game.
But what's crazy is that we sat there and we had good teachers who taught us the game. But as we played the game, it was as if the end game, you're like, it really was 3.5 hours because I really.
Yeah.
I feel like I need like another 2 turns to really maximize my points. Honestly, I think that I've learned that about games. Like, not necessarily like long games is just where it's at. It's not that, but some games that do look long and look complex, they have like you said, the designers, detail that they've put into the game, their brilliance that they've put into the game. They've thought about it so much where that 3 hours, 4 hours. There's games that go up to 8 hours long. Have I ever played them? No.
Jeez.
But there's gamers that will tell you those games, as you get immersed into, your strategy and doing things and, having that banter across the table with your opponents, that it just becomes where the end game comes. And you're like, what? No, I have to play that again. Okay.
Yeah.
You look at your time, you're like, yeah, there's no time to play it again, but you want to play it again later. And I think that's something that I've told Delilah. It's like, not that, hey, would you be willing to try a 4-hour game or 3-hour game? But when I try to introduce her to games that just look a little bit more in-depth in strategy, what I personally try to do is when I want to teach her a game, I try and teach her a game that incorporates a bunch of different mechanics, whether it's worker placement, set collection, all these different things, because a lot of these longer games have all of those components built into one, which does make it longer. And when I'm teaching a game, I try to do my best to say, hey, this game is similar to, how Pandemic has a cooperative mode? Okay, so it's a cooperative game. So you play with the cooperativeness like here, and then in Wingspan, when you're trying to, create an engine or build an engine here. To her, the first engine building type game that we've played, and it's an awesome game, is San Juan. So when I say, hey, San Juan, the cards have multiple things. You use the cards for currency and you're setting the cards out. And then if you have these things, they trigger off of each other. So when I tell her these games that she can relate to them, I hope that she can find this new game that I'm trying to teach her, all those elements, and just be like, oh, I see the design, I see the strategy. And that's how I'm hoping I can get her in some more stuff. But ultimately, like I said, I think I've come to the conclusion, you women like what you like, right? And you guys have been definitely more open to trying new stuff. But, there's going to be games that are on our shelves that it's only going to be you and me that play, right? Or, when we get together with other people that we know that play those type of games, that's when they're going to get to play, And, I think the last question before we go into our segment of finding out the challenge is with party games. You both had mentioned party games as kind of your niche, or kind of where you guys find that togetherness with everybody, right? That's what you guys look forward to the most. What prevents you from trying games that are not party games? So if you go to a game and you're like, yeah, I probably really don't want to try a party game, or is it something that you think of, hey, I'm open to it, but why don't we get our feet wet by playing a party game or a lighter game first to kind of build ourselves up into that game? So what do you think?
So I'll start off with saying it depends on what mood I'm in. And it depends on the crowd. For me, if I'm around a crowd that I typically see on a week-to-week basis, I'm okay with jumping into something a little bit more strategic, a little bit more in-depth. Versus if I'm with a group of friends or around family that I haven't seen in a while, I look forward to the party games, because it's almost like an icebreaker. It's like, how have you been? It gives you that point to make memories, laughter, having fun, being, teaming up with certain family members or friends. For me, that's, I think, what separates party games and other games. Definitely depends on the mood and the crowd.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I guess what attracts me to party games is the team aspect of most of them. It's like working in a group of 4 or 5 people, and you're competing against another team, and you're just loud and rambunctious. I like those types, I like that environment. But like you said, if I'm around the same group of people often, that's gonna be too much. Ain't nobody gonna have time for that. So I mean, when it depends on the mood, just like Delilah said. But knowing that, I guess we did play Pandemic with you guys one time.
Yeah.
That was kind of it wasn't like an individual versus kind of setting.
No,
right?
it was us versus the board.
Right.
Yeah.
So and I enjoyed that game. So I guess it's just learning more games that are kind of like that, because sometimes I get intimidated to play it's just me.
That you have to figure it out all yourself.
Right. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not capable.
Yeah, especially being new, I think. Yeah, that's kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
Right.
Because then you got the guy reading all the rules who already knows what it is.
Right. And then it's all.
No, I lose all the time. I lose all the time to this one.
But and it's funny because like even earlier, and I won't name the game, but you know, we tried it and I realized that some of the wording I got wrong.
Right. Like you were giving me wrong direction.
And then like when you read it, it was like, no, it's for when you do, where you gotta read it. I'm like, these words get on my last nerves. But it's what makes the rules right, you know, and something that we gotta pay attention to.
Yeah. I think the wording and different
Wording
things
is
like
everything.
that. Yeah. So I think when we come back, we're gonna talk about this challenge that we gave our wives. All right. So I don't know how your challenge went. I can explain how our challenge went. I'll let Delilah talk about how our challenge went. And when we come back, listeners, be prepared for how you get a new gamer or a casual gamer into trying something new. Like, or what are your do's and your don'ts? So stay tuned.
Is that a challenge I hear? Well, challenge accepted.
All right, welcome everybody back to our next segment, which I don't know what we're going to call this. The challenge. The challenge.
Let's go.
The challenge.
So for the listeners that are listening for the first time or didn't hear episode 3, what we challenged ourselves to do was offer our wives the opportunity to play one game in our collection that they have not played before, whether it be something that was either hard, easy, whatever the case may be. So what I did is I took 4 games off of my shelf and I presented them to my wife and I said, I'm going to read the theme of the game. You tell me which one you want to try. So I read the first one I pulled off the shelf was Chai. Then I pulled off, I can't even remember the game that I pulled off. All I know is that she chose Chai.
There you go.
That's all I need to
That's all I need to know too. That's all I need to know too.
So I pulled off Chai and I just said the game is about having orders. You have these customers and they want specific types of teas and they have these cards that are almost like order cards. You have to fulfill their order for this tea and you gain the resources. There's ways to collect these resources, have money to buy things from the market, buy things from the pantry, and you fulfilling these orders. And there's only like a time clock on the game. And I went to the next game, and actually it was Sorcerer City from Skybound Games.
Okay.
And I started going over Sorcerer City, and that was my pick that I kind of wanted to play. Not that Chai's not good, but I've been itching to play Sorcerer City. It's been in my collection for like a month. I got it during the pandemic, and it was through a trade. I just wanted to play with those cool little coins that they have. And halfway through that description, she goes, I want to play Chai. It's about tea. I love tea. We're playing Chai. So
there we go. Got him to the interest.
So
there you go.
It's thematic for me.
There you go.
The theme.
Perfect.
So Chai, which is designed by newer designers to the industry, fairly newer designers. Dan and Connie Kazmaier, they're from way up north in Canada. They run their own publishing company called Steeped Games, and they actually have another version of this game. It's just a 2-player only version. This one goes up to 5 players, I believe. Really, really good game. It's easy, but it has some strategic elements to it that you can see. And I'm gonna let my wife. I'm gonna ask her the questions and let her kind of discuss it. So, babe.
Yes.
So, babe. First of all, what was your overall feeling going into the game? Pretty much after seeing and hearing the instructions. Well, you really didn't see them at the beginning. I kind of just went over the instructions with you, ran everything down. So were you intimidated? Were you intrigued? We know you were intrigued because of the topic, but after the instructions, were you turned off? Anything?
No, actually, I mean, the way you explained the directions, it seemed pretty straightforward. I asked a few questions just to clarify and make sure that I got the gist of, what we were supposed to be doing during gameplay. But, the theme really just jumped out and gravitated. I gravitated to that primarily. So going into it, I was just like, yeah, let's play. It's about tea. Why not?
So, all right, next question. So was it fairly easy to learn and kind of grasp as you played it, or were you kind of really on the rules at the beginning? What do you have to say by the complexity?
The game is pretty easy to learn. I mean, you explained it in a few minutes, and I was just like, all right. I'm pretty sure the game came with like this little cue card.
Yeah.
And I like when games do that. It kind of tells you this is what you can do on your turn.
Okay, yeah.
It's almost like a little cheat sheet. So I do really appreciate when content creators do create that. Because it also reminds you of your different options during gameplay. But yeah, for me, it was pretty simple, straightforward to play. And it was weird because the teacups, they were so cute that I think I was just, even that concept alone, I was like, oh, okay, wow. We put the orders and the ingredients in the teacup. Just really cool way to symbolize what the game's about.
So now I know sticking the extra money into the deluxe version to get the squishy cups and everything does pay off when it comes to table presents.
Let me borrow that because I'm getting the eye over here. I'm burning up.
Sounds like a delightful.
All right. So, all right, next question. So you said that the rules were fairly easy to grasp. As you played the gameplay, what were there parts of the gameplay that you did find maybe as you played could have been a little clearer, or were they fairly easy? I know that there was one rule or one tip token. I think I remember correctly that. Remember when we place our orders, fulfill the orders, you were placing all your ingredients into a tea. You flip over that tip. I think there was one tip. She was like, "What does this tip mean?" And I was in the rule book and I was looking for it, and I forget. So I put out I think I sent a Facebook message or something to the designer. And I know they're super busy, so I'm still waiting to hear back. I should go on BGG to kind of figure it out, but it wasn't in the rule book. I might have missed it, to be honest. I miss a lot of things in the rule book.
Was it the token with the stripes?
It was a token with the multiple stripes.
So we didn't know if we had to pick the token with the stripes out of the bag.
Correct.
Or just hand in the bag.
We knew it was a wild. Yeah, we knew it was a wild, so we didn't know which exactly one we picked. But I know she said, I need to know exactly what this means because it is important to my strategy. So when she said that, the first thing I said is, I am losing this game again. But yeah, so I think that was really, I know for me, that was the only
thing that was questionable in our gameplay.
So we know that the theme of it being tea gravitated you to it, but you talked about earlier in the previous segment about the colors and all the other stuff of the box and seeing it set up on the table. Were those parts of the things that really kept you immersed into the game? Absolutely.
I mean, the game pieces, they were vivid yellow, red, white. They were quality pieces. I don't know if this is part of the deluxe version, but
yes.
Quality pieces.
You win.
I think that's definitely an important factor. And just even like the little sections. It was really cute how this was the market, this was the
pantry.
The pantry. It's just pretty symbolic of how you would go about making tea.
Now, I should have went for the $200 master set where everything was handcrafted, right?
Wow.
No.
Wow. Can you taste the tea?
Are they real ingredients? Right.
No, but I think it's cool because, like, I know one thing that I do get. I love the colors of games. I'm not colorblind, but I love the idea how some games do have that opportunity where you can have the colors, but also have, for people who are colorblind, good, just artwork or symbols that are fairly easy to follow. Do you think
the coins were pretty?
Oh, the coins
pretty
are
solid, and it made clinking noise like real money.
Nice heavy coin.
So,
yeah. Nice heavy metal coins.
Good quality game as well.
So, something you would try again?
Absolutely.
Now, how is this game, compared to some of the stuff that you have played before? Like I'm not telling you to rank it. I'm not telling you to give me your BGG top 100.
I think I like, because I like viticulture. I
Okay.
like the idea of making wine, and this is where this goes and how you fulfill this wine flavor. So maybe that's something that I am also gravitating towards in the board game world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, viticulture was in my top 5. Actually, I think it's number 1.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But
And
I
more
think
complex game, too.
quality pieces, like when you upgraded Pandemic into little petri dishes. To me, I like that aspect of the game too.
Awesome.
Nice.
So that was our experience with Chai.
How do you win that game? Out of curiosity.
Oh, it's the person who has the most points. So I think when you fulfill certain orders, like certain customers give you a certain amount of points. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most points wins the game. So yeah,
How
it's
do
just
they know the tea's good?
How do they know? like you didn't.
Well, I guess you're gonna have to try.
Like you didn't steep it wrong, so they give you full tip all the time. It was like one of those where it's like mandatory 20% tip they added onto the bill.
Oh, so we in Center City, Philadelphia. That's okay. Got you.
But it's also like however complex the tea was, however many ingredients, you got higher points
Nice.
for
Right, okay.
fulfilling those orders.
Got you.
I thought there was a pretty cool elements of the game too, where if you were, you have a specific color. So whether you're the person who is the white tea or the green tea or the red tea, you have like 6 little tea markers in essence. And when you fulfill an order, let's say I'm fulfilling a white tea, I have to take one of these white tea markers, throw it in with my ingredients into the cup to show that I fulfill that white tea order and then flip it over. But I can only fulfill 6 white teas in the game. My opponents can also fulfill white teas as well. And when they do, they have to pay me a coin to fulfill a white tea. But so there was that strategy that we started finding out a little bit like midway in the game, or maybe a little bit before midway. It's like, okay, I'm reserved, because you have an opportunity to reserve teas. Like pretty much there's customers out in front of the board in this like central location. And you can say, I'm going to reserve this customer. It's worth 15 points. I'm going to reserve them to make sure that my opponent doesn't get those big 15 points. But if that's a white tea and I'm the white player and I no longer have white teas I can't fulfill that order. Now I've reserved that for nothing,
Right.
which I thought was a pretty cool element of the game. And we were playing it with my 17-year-old brother. So it was 3 of us playing, and I think 3 was a great player count.
Yeah.
So, Judge, what was your challenging game?
So first of all, I would like to add in my defense that I was unaware that Jazz was able to give his wife 4 options, and I'm just finding out that he played with a 3rd person. We'll leave it there. Okay, so the game that my wife and I played, is Rune Stones, which is designed by Rudiger Dorn and published by Queen Games. It was the first game that I kind of was introduced to at PAX. That was the first, we met 2 random people. Me and you played against them. Very, very encouraging people, too. We really had a good time and enjoyed them. We actually hung out with them a little bit after.
Yeah.
And tested a few other games with them. So it was really cool. And then to meet some of the employees from Queen Games, they were very inviting, very nice. We had a ref with us that was just helping us through the process. It's a really good game. I ended up liking it, and I won at PAX, so that just helped me out, like it even more.
Yeah, I think that was, and I think that's one game that we both went into not knowing anything about.
Yeah.
I think you gravitated. You're like, oh, this looks pretty cool.
Right,
Let's try
yeah.
this. And I was like, yeah, let's sit down and play it. And I know you. I like the game, but I know you're like, wow, this is something that I really gravitate to.
Yeah.
Like everything that it comes with, and it encompasses the rule set. And I thought, it's fairly easy to learn. How did it go with you guys?
So, babe, what is your feeling going into the game after seeing and hearing the instructions? Seeing the game pieces and all that. Were you intimidated, intrigued, turned off?
Well, let's set the scene. I sat down and I saw the box of this game. And it is not a box I would normally pick up at the store and take to the checkout, right? And
Or look at the back of the box.
Or look at the back of the box.
So we would have lost as soon as it came to anyway.
I looked at the back of the box and I was not like excited to play this game because he already told me we're gonna play this game, and I'm looking at it. It's like a big box, and I'm not excited. I don't like I don't even know what the theme is. Like I don't even know what time, like what period in time we are in. All I know is that the people look like fairies and wizards and things like that, and I'm not like attracted to that. So that's my first like reaction to it. I'm just like not excited, and it's very late in the night, and I'm putting the girls to bed, so my mood is just not where it needs to be to play a board game. So that's how I first started. And so I come out and I like how he was setting up everything. I guess the game itself, it looks pretty cool. Like how it has different sections, different pieces. The gems are really pretty, and things like that. I really like how it visually looks. But then I was also intimidated because I'm like, there are a lot of pieces in this game. What the heck is going on? For me, I still don't get what the game is about. I don't know if, because I didn't look at the rule book, I kind of went off of what he was saying. I don't know the backstory. I don't know where I am. I don't know who I am. You know what I mean? What is my mission? Do I have a mission? All I know is that I am summoning. Is that
you had three options.
Is summoning a word?
Yeah.
Okay, summoning.
Summon creatures.
It sounds weird.
Yeah, we summon creatures.
Like who are these creatures? Like, are they evil creatures? Like, I don't even know. So you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not getting the backstory. So as I'm playing, I'm just going through the motions, not knowing why I'm doing what I'm doing. All I know is that I need to get to number 65 and the game is over. So that and I would like to just say, I am not a gamer. So please excuse me for not being, my terminology is not, where it needs to be. So I'm sorry if I'm not saying things correctly, but this is just my honest review. So that to me was the hardest thing, was understanding the rules, because it was just like, what is the purpose of all of these actions if at the end of the game it's basically whoever finishes last wins, like whoever, you know what I mean? So that's what I got from it. And I don't want to say I blame you, but I blame you because I don't feel like you gave me that background
in my defense,
or you like taught me anything about the game itself.
So in my defense, one, I am just as much of a novice as you are.
So out of all the games in your collection, you want to pick this one. That's
my second defense, I was coerced into playing this game, selecting this game for you. Like I said in the beginning, I did not know that we could give options. And I did not know we can invite people over to play. And then also in my defense, I did play this game about 7-8 months ago, and that was in December. So it's been a while. One, it was a favorite game because it was just a game that I just didn't forget. It was that good. That's how much I love the game. And like I told you at the end, I was like, this is kind of my favorite game.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, why do we even? I'm like, we try to play it during the day when we got kids. Like, they're gonna touch everything, and I ain't having it. Like,
yeah,
so.
I get that part because the pieces are so small and they can get lost. But to me, it's just like, I don't know. It wasn't like, there wasn't no laughter. There wasn't any conversation. There was just, I blame the time of day, but I just was not excited to play the game. So my mood was just like shot. So I was not like, I won. Let's not, I won the game. But
By
then
2 points.
but-
By 2 points, guys.
it's like all that for what? Like I felt like I did so much work. All I had to do was is past 65, and you told me I won, and I'm like, what? So like, you know what I mean? So like that is what just kind of turned me off. But I will say we played it again a second time with 2 additional players, and I started to understand a little bit more. I still don't know why we had to do so much. Like I still don't know the backstory, but I was able to play it again. And I didn't mind it. I would play it again. I would play it a third time. I feel like the more I play it, the more I'll get it. But my first initial, you know, it was just like, no.
And again, in my defense. So guys, I want you guys to imagine, right? So you're new with this, right? And you say, hey, you want to invite your wife in who has no type of background in gaming. And she looks at you like this.
Because that is the vibe the
Blank
game
stare.
gave me.
Like
it's dark. It's
I'm
like
really into like I ain't even get the game started, and I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna get you this. But you brought up a good point though, because looking at the game itself, and this is something I didn't realize until she just said it, is that there aren't names for the creatures.
Yeah.
You know, there weren't even names for the characters.
it's none of that is in the
Well, so it says it's from the Viking time. So, you know, because Rune Stones, and like that's the time it comes from the Vikings, right? That's what I got from it. Ultimately, after that, I didn't really get too deep into it because I seen your face and I'm like, I better not read through all this. I better know what half of this means already so we can get to this game. Because I felt like the more I read into it, the more that you were ready just to turn around slowly and just walk in the bed as I was talking, you know? So there are many factors that put into play where we played the game, it still was good, and we even talked about it afterwards and realized like, okay, you know, this is something that we just have to we have to learn to be a little more open with, both of us, you know. So but I like I said, ultimately you still sat down and played with me. You beat me because even though you didn't really care much for the game, you figured out the mechanics easily without even me breaking too much down to you. And you still won. You know what I mean? So it's like, in that, it has a way of saying that the game is a little more easier than it looks. You know, it is a lot of pieces, but once you get the fact that there's 3 moves that you can do in like either or that you can pick in one turn, you know, then you realize, all right, in these first few rounds, I need to be summoning creatures, right? So I build up my deck, you know, the card, the deck, and then a discard pile, and then it goes back and then you loop back and forth, you know, and all that. Then you can buy gems so that you can forge gems buy gems to forge artifacts later down the line. Once you forge the artifacts, you take them, and that's how you get rune stones, you know. So ultimately, once we got the 3 main steps down, everything else was easy, you know, and that's what I did appreciate from it because I'm watching you play and I'm like, wait, I got to catch up now. Like, I really got to make sure that I'm racking up points because like the cool thing yours is what they call your strategy was more of what they call a slow churn, meaning like every move you were moving towards 65, right? You know, it was just like
move around the board,
5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and it was just like, and I'm like, shoot, I need to hurry up my grandma. I got to summon Jesus to pull down and come, you know. So it was a lot. It was a lot, but you know, it was cool. Like
overall, I like the game. I just feel like the initial, you know, experience was hard because of the factors, the time of day. You know, I wasn't really attracted to like, you know, not the physical, but just the outer, you know, look of it. But overall, like I would play it again for sure.
So, do you think it was fairly easy to learn?
It was after I played it 2 times now.
Okay, so for the first time, it was a little confusing though.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So what part of the rules or gameplay was hard to grasp, and what parts did you find easy?
I guess like I wasn't sure why I was summoning the creatures at first, but I guess it's to build your deck.
Mm-hmm.
So I just realized that now. So
wow, we kept fighting you to turn your discard pile over so you know which one was a discard pile. And which ones did you find easy?
Was buying the
gems.
The gems.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because once the card abilities, once you just knew what the cards were, it was just easy to do, right?
Right.
So the question is, what captivated or drew you into the gameplay? But I'm going to ask you, was there anything that captivated you, drew you into the gameplay?
No. Oh, hold up. She did say the gems were pretty.
Okay, gems. Shout out to the gems. Queen Game. Shout out to the gems. Rudiger. Shout out to the gems.
There's a lot of games out there that have gems. That
They're pretty,
Yeah, but sometimes gems ain't gonna make.
Like the board game was like
big
really
gems
nice. Yeah,
so the board, so the appearance of
like
it.
the rocks and all that looked really pretty. Yeah.
Then they had the cool little throne. I didn't realize
The
they had a
chair
throne
was
before.
cute, yeah.
So that was cool.
Cute.
So how does this game compare to some of the games you played in your past? Matter of fact, skip that one. Is it something that you would try again? And you already answered.
Yeah, I played it for the second time.
Right.
I felt a lot better, and I would.
Yeah,
not
because
play
you was
it
talking
again.
a lot of trash today too. You was talking a lot of trash.
Listen, we played it today, right?
You know,
which is my first time. So that's my wife's first time playing it.
Right.
And Dora still whooped us, and she whooped us fast and
She
hard.
pulled us on the road runner status.
Yeah, she picked up on that good. What did you
Because
think?
all you gotta do is get to 65. Like that's all.
And I think that's where the difference is. The difference in the game.
I'm
aspect
playing
is,
it differently.
well, you just want to get to the
65.
end. Yeah, it's like that's that super competitive in you. Like it's like,
Oh,
all right,
for
what's the goal?
sure.
65. All right. Instead of like, for me, when it comes to board games, what I try to do, because I'm a creative person and you are too, I know because you take pictures, is like I gotta immerse myself in everything. I'm like, all right, let me try this too. Let me try this. Let me see what this makes sense. This makes sense. And I'm like, and I'm over here trying to set up a strategy like before I go. So, and in my defense, yet again, is that I'm a thinker. And sometimes I can overthink. Jazz knows this because when we play Dice Masters, I would get frustrated all the time because I'm over here trying to find bills. And then so I listen to this guy and I'm like, for these bills for like 8 years. And like, so, but when I watched you play, it kind of helped me stop to think and just more so enjoy the game. And at that point, it was just like, all right, I'm gonna just do stuff. And, and it was cool to find different combinations. Mm-hmm. Yet again, it's one of those things where it's a game that you can play with the same people and get a completely different outcome, like we talked about last episode. So I think it was fun. Like the tactic was a little bit the same that when we played then to like today, because, I noticed like the stones that you got were the same as the ones that you got last time we played. So that was cool to see that. And then it was almost like you mastered it because you knew exactly what stones to go for, when to get them. And once you got them, that was the game. It was like you just see the fly, like me, and that was it. Everybody back here, 8 points. Well, I just got 3, so I'm gonna get 1, 2, 3, and then that one has 2 victory points, 1, 2, and then 1 on that card 2. Then I get 8 gems, and then I'm gonna just summon God, and then he's gonna come down and gonna make me win the game. And like and that's really what it was. And I mean, like even though it was a rough beginning, we still had a dope ending. Shout out to Queen Games because. Like my wife may have been, I can say intimidated, but not as into it. But for me, I still love the game. I do have the expansions, which makes it even more, more of a gaming experience.
Yeah.
So can't wait to try that.
I think
as well.
with me, it just goes to show that you can introduce these types of games to someone who's not into them at all, and still like. I'm still interested. Like, I still want to learn more. Yeah. I'm not completely turned off. Like I said, would it have been something I would have picked off the shelf? No. Like, even after having it here and reading the box, I did not want to play it at all. But I wouldn't mind playing it now. Mm-hmm. So, it's definitely possible.
What do you think? Because you played it today for the first time as well.
I did. So, I know I asked some questions in the beginning. What's the objective? What's the storyline behind this game? I didn't fully understand why I'm doing what I'm doing in this game. I just knew that you had to get 65 points. However, I didn't really understand and know how to get those 65 points. So I think by playing along with you guys and watching you do the combinations that you did, that helped me to see, okay, that's some of the strategies that you can use in this game. If I were to play it again, I would definitely use different strategies. I was stuck on the just acquiring cards phase.
Yes, you
Some
stayed
of the
there.
For the majority of the game.
That's all you did was
I had
summon
no
creatures.
idea what the rune stones were for. I found that out. I was like, wow, wait, she's got 4 rune stones. What are these things?
Yeah.
They're extra abilities. Makes sense. It helps enhance your gameplay. And then how quickly you can acquire, I don't know what they're called, the colorful
artifacts?
tokens.
The
The artifacts, yeah.
And I throughout the game, I kept asking questions. Wait, what does this do? And what does that do? So I was learning as we played.
Mm-hmm.
Would I give it a try again? Probably, but it may not be one of the first on my list. I think for me, it's the theme. Maybe if I understood a little bit more about the backstory of the game, maybe I'd be a little bit more understanding. Okay, that makes sense why we do things in this fashion.
Right.
But,
Like, give me a little tutorial.
Storyline.
Give me a little storyline.
Well, I think what I've noticed is that a lot of board games in the beginning, when you open the instruction manual, they do have a backstory and a backline. But I know that I've just kind of skipped them sometimes because I'm like, I just want to get to the gameplay. But I think, the people at the table, they want to just know how the game works and know this and just play it. Now, hearing you guys both say, like, knowing the backstory of what is the theming around this game can kind of help put the pieces together and like, okay, so yes, this is what's going on. This creatures are doing this. This creatures are trying to obtain this. So therefore, the actions that I'm doing, it kind of fills in that story plot, or like within the movie or whatever, what I'm saying,
like,
or TV show.
I won. So what? Am I a queen now? Like, because I'm sitting on the throne.
We'll call
like,
you the
what
queen.
does this mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what did I win? A seat on this throne?
The queen of
You
the
got all
Iron
power.
Throne.
You have all
so
power.
what-
That's what you got. You got all power.
So just little things like that will help me understand. So
Yeah, but in my defense, like, it's hard to present a game to somebody who gives you the body language of "I quit" before they sit down at the table.
But she did say, listen, in her defense, she did say the time of day was another thing, right? The box
and we did try to play early. We did.
I think
it just didn't work out.
I think for us as well, that's something recently, because now, past year, our daughter's a year old now, that we definitely don't get to the table as much. My wife's in her master's program, and it's like class nights, especially now with this quarantine, everything's done remotely.
Right.
7:00 hits when she's out of class. It's like, I just want to relax. I don't want to have to think at all. So the games that we have been playing have been fairly light. We started with these roll and write, flip and write games like the Cartographers and Welcome to, and little quick easies. That's what we've been getting to the table more frequently. But yeah, I can tell you that I think we mentioned it when we talked about the quarantine episode, that I was excited for the quarantine. It's like, oh, I'm going to be home. I can finally play these games that are not get them out of the shrink. But
psych.
Yeah. Work said psych. The baby said psych.
Right.
And my wife's schooling said psych. Right. So for us, it's like, it comes down to, can you get a game on Friday night? Yes, depending on how crazy her week was.
Right.
And then, maybe on the weekends. But now I think we're having some more time. But the more you play, and I think for Dora being the newest gamer here, right?
Yeah.
So the more you play, I think like that you'll be able to transfer some of the concepts, right, that you have from this game into the other one. Especially now that
kind of like this, but with that a twist.
Like, well, now you have the deck building aspect. So now she's had like the idea of what a deck builder does, right? And you're building your deck to, do what you need to do. And I think for you've played many deck builders, and she's a beast on deck builders like Star Realms, Shards of Infinity, like a lot of the combat deck building games, where she has mastered the puzzle behind which cards to buy into your deck, and to be able to cull or remove some cards within your deck to get to those powerful cards faster. And the more that I watched her play Runestones, that's what I was seeing. I think she was looking at which cards are super powerful to buy here,
right?
And then once I buy them, what should be the way and I get them out of the deck? So that's why I was looking at her. Is that what you kind of were getting
Towards
at?
the end, I started to see, as I watched you guys play, I started to see, okay, I need these type of cards to maximize my gameplay.
Yeah.
To get to where I need to be.
Yeah, so pretty much, Dora, you have competition in the next game. We're still in the back burner.
Right, yeah, for real. But like ultimately, the fact that, with everything going on, thank you for, for helping with this experiment and, playing the game. We really do appreciate both of you guys, both of you ladies, for taking the time to support your husbands here, wonderful husbands.
Nerdiness, right?
Right, and for giving us the opportunity because, it could be worse. You know, we could be one with, the nagging wives that are just saying something like, why are you playing that stupid little game again? We can have that. Yeah.
But I think, what were we going to say?
No, I was just going to say, I know how important games are and how much of a hobby it is for you. So, while I may not be attracted to the same type of games that you're, bringing to the table and whatnot, I do try my best to meet you halfway. I know it's one of your passions. So, I have tried to sit down, force myself sometimes when I'm tired after spending the day with the baby, work, school, homework. And I know sometimes you want to get games to the table. But I think one of the things that I've started to do is communicate to you that, listen, bring a game to the table that we've played before. That way we can enjoy time together. We can spend time together playing a game that I don't have to sit a few minutes to listen to the directions, that we can actually get enjoyment out of it. So that's one of the things that I've kind of challenged myself, is just to kind of communicate that to you. But, also forgive me if I seem somewhat critical to some of the games and the style of gameplay. I just want to be transparent and honest, because I'm not your seasoned gamer. So there's certain things that I gravitate to, off of just being a novice.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. It's all about perspective. If you're not true, what can you, who are you? You know what I mean? So, it's again, you guys are being honest, and that's what we want. Ultimately, we want everyone to be, even our listeners, our viewers. We want you guys listen. If you have something you want to talk about, or something that you want to say, or you feel like you didn't like, a game that we liked, let us know. We're down to talk about it. That's because it really is. It's all about perspective and hearing your voice in what we're talking about, because everyone has a voice. We just try to find a positive way for you to express your voice. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I think that's important, because in this hobby, there's so many different types of games, right? And everybody does, like you said, gravitate to certain things, right? There's certain, like, I'm a big worker placement fan. Like, if I was to tell you worker placement, then engine building and tableau building and deck building. Those
I don't
three.
know what any of those things mean.
Well, you'll find out. But
I know a few.
But ultimately, that's my go-to. Like, if I had a shelf of just worker placement games, it probably would be a lot of worker placement games. Mm-hmm. But for some people, they might see that as, oh, this is just a similar game with a just different theme. And in some essences, that is true. But for me, because I enjoy that mechanic, I'm able to find the differences, even if they're so small within that. Mm-hmm. So I think everybody has their things that they're into, and you just go from there. But like I said, for the listeners that are out there that are listening today, we want to thank you for being with us. But most importantly, you guys might have a gamer in your house, whether it be your wife, your husband, your significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the case may be, your children that don't game. They're the ones that are reluctant to play with you. So I guess our, thing is to keep trying, find it, challenge yourself to get your spouse or your significant, that person to the table, because ultimately you're going to find out what it is that they don't like, or why it is they don't like what they like. from hearing you guys. That's why I thank you, because
Yeah.
now I know, what games I should be bringing off the shelf before I decide to say, let's play 4 hours of Maracaibo, or, that's just where it comes to. And I think it's a gradual process. And while they may never get to that step, at least you can enjoy the time that you had. And I think Dora and Delilah, you both mentioned it, was that, you guys both enjoy that interaction of bringing people together, especially if you haven't been together for a while, just enjoy each other's company. And I think for me, that has been my biggest attraction to the hobby.
Yeah.
Again, being an athlete, those things, I love the competitive nature, not being able to do those things anymore. But still being able to have that time. You and I both know we don't have cable in the house. So like our free time, if it's not just discussing or reading or doing work or spending time with our daughter, it's trying to get around the table to play a board game, or even if we play on our iPads or our phones back and forth, sitting there playing a game competitively digitally against each other, we do enjoy that time. So I think that's what's pretty cool about the hobby, whatever the hobby it is, right? Whether you're into, like you said, watching sports, you can sit down and watch those together, doing a movie. But what I specifically like about the board games is it allows you to sit back, put the digital devices to the side, and then just have that whether it's that fun party type game or that conversation around a strategic game. Because while everybody is still being strategic, sometimes there can be that banter, as we saw today from the winner, the queen over there, right? So
Queen of Queen games.
So before we get going, ladies, anything you want to close out with?
I just want to thank you guys for allowing us to be a part of this podcast and this conversation. And I know for me personally, I'm grateful for my husband to still pull through and play the game, even though I did not seem warm and inviting. And but I definitely am willing and open to start coming to the table with you more often. And I say it publicly because I am interested in getting to know more about this, this hobby of yours. And I want to be able to be your partner, to be able to play whenever we can find time. I think it'll be fun, and to see what different types of genres we can, we can say, like, this is our type of game,
Yeah.
So it may not be the Rune Stones, but then maybe it will be. Maybe one day I'll surprise you and say, hey, babe, you want to play some Rune Stones? But I definitely am excited to, to start this with you. So I think it'll be great.
Yep. I mean, thank you guys for featuring us. Hopefully we've been able to kind of bring some insight as to where even we as wives, as women, are coming from too, with some of the thematic games that you guys have on your shelves. But yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. So again, thank you everybody. Again, I'm Jazz.
This is Judge.
And want to thank you for listening to this episode. We'll see you on the next one.
Peace out.